into the game. We're talking wood and grain. Charles bring the heat on Southern Yellow Pine. Mascot U.S. species, all is on the line. Greg with the spruce, keeping knowledge defined. Ashy moderates, drop the facts in the booth. We on the buy, the sell ain't no hidden truth. Economics and trends, we got it all so clear. Lumber Word Podcast, best believe we're here. If you want to make more, get in on the score. Join us every week, you'll be hungry for more. Love it, been keen, don't
everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Lumber Word, episode 175. 175 seems to have just a great numerology to it. Feels good. I like everything about it. Glad, Charles, you're here. Matt, G-Pop. A little bit of a interesting week in lumber. It's the week that everything kind of went a little quiet for, a couple of days here. But I'm very optimistic because I've gotten 3 orders from 3 new customers this week. And it's not relying on the same 3 large chains that when they quit buying, everybody gets frightened that it's over with. There's still a lot of people buying lumber. From what I see on the spruce side, going through the numbers Friday, when I looked at all the composites, or as some people in different parts of the world like to say, is composite, it's crazy how I looked at everything. And the one cheap thing that sticks out is 2x4, number 2, random lengths spruce. Greg wisely pointed out the CME expired yesterday. $1.50 away from the orders we had in. Isn't that crazy how that happens?
Yeah, we went in and we said, hey, let's scale down by 20, buy 20 cars, and starting at 600. Ash said, well, that means the low will be 601. He missed it by $1.50. It was 602.50.
Isn't it crazy how that happens? And so I looked at the composites, and well, first of all, Greg was wisely said, if you just traded CME, you've had a horrible summer because you've had a 6-week flat market. And even if you bought the top and the bottom, what's that range, Greg? What was that range?
I mean, I just look at it. Basically, it's almost been for 6 months. The market's traded between 580 and 600 with, a couple of tweets, a couple of weeks where it poked a little bit below that into the 560s, and a few weeks where it poked above 600 until just recently when we had the move from 600 to 640.
Did it do a turtle head just above it?
Yeah, it did. Little turtle head.
So,
family. This is a family show. We're only going to say the S word.
So and I look at all the composites, and they're wildly out of proportion with the stud composite, the Southern Yellow Pine composite, U.S. species. The different composites are all at 100 percentile against the 2x4 market. And has it happened before? Yeah, during COVID and all that. So either 2x4 is wildly undervalued, or there's some wildly overvalued items. And I guess that's the coin flip of where's stuff going to go to. The other thing is I sold my first few loads, Charles, of 5/4 by 6, number 3/4 decking. I'm going to thank Rich for that. He said I should go to the well to Charles because he might have some honey holes. And my response
was it a dry hole?
Charles says ain't got none.
You're a low-grade decking.
Well, it's probably
now?
because you sent me that email and I was on a Polaris in a cow pasture.
So, yeah. But
I mean, I don't understand
yellow
why
pine,
that
Ashley?
would have any impact.
Yellow pine. Yeah.
I'm just curious for the audience. What does that stuff sell for on a delivered basis?
Yeah, we can't really say.
No, I mean, it's in the in the Midwest, 8, 10, 12,
That's
14.
a trade secret, man.
16s are like low 6s.
Wow. You know what patio 1 and 2 grade sells for in like Ponderosa Pine out of the West?
No idea how much.
Chicago? Over 900.
900 Chicago.
Over 900 delivered.
For
Midwest.
patio grade.
Yeah. Patio 1 and 2, that's the actual grade. He's selling the fall down to that.
I should say,
4.
I may be off. It actually is in the low 6s, and
because it's not sold. It's not sold on a nominal. It's sold on an actual, right? So they don't get the free half an inch here and there. They got to sell it as actual. So mills charge more for it because it's It's harder to make the patio 1 and 2 grade. Anyways, why do I know
No,
this?
they charge more because they have to give the full size.
But the point is, like, I went out and thanks to, I'm not going to say for showing me around, I went out and visited a customer, a couple of weeks ago and saw what he has in his yard. And I'm like, it's a complete difference when you go see somebody.
Yeah.
And they spend
the Matt's out in the field 2 or 3 times.
But no,
a year.
and they spend time with you. It's like, man, it's a difference maker, right? But now there are some customers, if you are selling them already, you don't want to go because they get a look at your face sometimes, and then all of a sudden you're not selling them anymore after you sell them once, right?
Come on, you're a face man. What are you talking about?
Anyway, Matt, you just got back from
I have no idea how many customers we've run off with the podcast, Ash, also, right? I mean, we're always like going, hey, it's great when we get positive feedback and whatnot. The negative, like, we've run some people off, I think,
Yeah, like the one guy that said if I charged, he would never, he wasn't going to look at our podcast anymore.
I love your podcast, but if you want to get any money for it, I'm going to lose your number.
That's cool. No worries. You've never bought anything from me in my life anyway. So,
whoa! Come on now. Let's not get testy.
This is funny. I'm glad to be back,
Matt.
Okay, Matt. I want to hear about the inland lumber producers. Premier industry event. You go every year and have been.
I've been going for 30 years now. I'm old.
Do they give you an award for that or something?
No,
so the oldest guy here, Matt Beymer.
The only way you get an award over there is if you win some golf prizes like a KP or win the horse race or whatever. But I'll just go generally what I learned from just talking to people from all over the country, because there is people from every nook and cranny of America, attending that. And for the spruce guys and the yellow pine guys that don't really understand what the inland is all the mills in eastern Washington, Oregon, pretty much all of Idaho, and then Montana. They formed a coalition 39, 40 years ago to create this inland lumber entity. And every summer they invite people that are their customers from all over the country to come join them and have, get-togethers, cocktail parties, and play a little golf and just shake hands and have a good time. It's a nice thing. It's kind of like the reverse of the Montreal Wood Convention because, you go up there. We used to go up in February and freeze our buns off. And, these guys are doing it in July and it's nice and sunny. So having said that, talking to a lot of different people there from all over, I came away with the impression this was a different kind of year than normal. So normally I go up there and it's kind of monolithic. Everybody's in the same page. Oh, it's a good market. Oh, it's a bad market. And there's not a lot of disagreement typically. It's just sort of, that's how it goes typically. Well, this year I'd say it was completely regionalized. And there was like 3 different answers to that question to the people I talked to. That a third of the people were like, yeah, it's not a very good year. And then a third of them were, oh, it's about the same as last year. It's okay. It's average. And then another third were like, yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're having a great year. So it really regionalized and really specific to business models. And so maybe that's one of the...
And you and I talked a little bit about that. Like, so the people that were saying it's not a good year, what was their profile regionally?
Those were retail guys those were retail guys in specific markets. And then there was some traders that are just, they're maybe their particular item or their particular region is just slow. So like I can tell you, like one guy I talked to, they service the Northwest. The Northwest, Oregon, Washington isn't as busy as say California or Arizona or Texas, right? And that's true. I mean, we're kind of high values, high interest rates slows things down in Oregon, Washington. But, so it was really a mishmash of different types of customers and regions and business strategies. I would say, generally speaking, whoever's in distribution in this country in a market that's at least as good as last year in terms of demand, probably having a good year, right? Those guys seem to be doing pretty well. And then everybody else is just sort of, various shades of gray as to how good the market is depending on where they are and what they're doing. But I want to talk about something serious for a moment because, as I said, I've been going to this thing for 30 years. And I've been buying lumber from the inland mills for 30 years. And there's 3 people retiring this year out of the inland, and I'm going to name them. First one's Bob Mai, president of Potlatch.
No
Second
way.
one, Jim
Bob Mai
Vandegrift.
retiring?
Yep.
He's been a fixture in this industry forever.
And then the second one is Jim Vandegrift, who's the sales manager, VP of sales of Bennett Lumber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the third one is Kirk Plaguey, who is VP sales manager at Clearwater. And you guys probably don't even really know these guys, but I do. I've known them as business partners for quite some time. And I'm going to say something about all 3 of them. I'm going to start with Kirk. So years ago, I never knew Kirk. I knew Jim Sandino, who used to work at Clearwater before Kirk. And I had a customer that called me, Ashley, about 5-quarter decking pine. And he was in a real scramble. He had a bunch of orders that he had given to another pine mill, and it was in the fall, and then it was now springtime, and he needed the wood, and they weren't producing it. So he called me. He's like, Beymer, you got to find somebody to make 5-quarter decking for me. I'm like, oh, let me do some work. So I got to work. I called everybody I knew. And the only guy that raised his hand and stood up and produced like 20 cars of 5-quarter decking for us was Kirk at Clearwater. And he bailed us out at a fair price. It was a really nice product. And I'm forever grateful for that, because those are the types of things that you never forget, right? This is just high quality human being. I've since met him several times at the inland, but I didn't know him from Adam when that happened. So that's the kind of person he is. And I'm going to miss him. And then Jim Vandegrift is one of the first guys I ever talked to when I was a rookie lumber buyer for Western International Forest Products in 1995. And he tucked me under his wing and taught me the ropes and let me get away with murder and, buy cars, roll them, change destas, change tallies. I mean, whatever. He was very fatherly towards me and protective of my business, and allowed me to learn the business and grow and make mistakes, and always treated me like a true gentleman. And every time you meet Jim, he's got a smile on his face. He's one of the nicest human beings I've ever met in my life. And I'm dearly going to miss Jim. And then finally we get to Bob Mai. And a lot of you guys might not know this, but I'm always palling around with Bob over there. Jim teases me about, oh yeah, you're going to go hang out with Bob, aren't you? I'm like, well, Bob Mai was selling my father OSB back in the 80s. So when I got in the business, I already knew who Bob was, but I'd never dealt with him. But I was motivated to do business with Potlatch because of the relationship that my father had with Potlatch prior to me getting into the business. And Bob Mai, just like Jim Vandegrift, treated me like his son, put his arms around me, let me get away with things he would never let anybody else get away with, and just fostered my relationship in the lumber business and my knowledge of it. And we have done all kinds of business over the years. I'm a big, big proponent of Potlatch and Bennett and Clearwater. I've always tried to market their products the way they want them to be marketed, as like the Cadillacs of the industry. And I think that's maybe the reason why they've let me get away with so much stuff, and they've empowered me to do so much business with them over the years. And I'm just, it's bittersweet for me, that they're retiring. They're really great people. And that's what this business is all about. For people like me, I get towards the back half of my career now, and I'm starting to lose people that I care about. And it's because I've put a lot of time and effort, and they've put a lot of time and effort into me. So I want to thank everyone listening, and especially those 3 men, for really looking after my career and helping me. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here right now. Like, they literally were instrumental in me being successful at this business. So thank you.
Well, that's cool, Matt. I don't know the other 2 very well, but I know Bob pretty well from a lot of dealings. He's been very active in NOLA over all the years, and Potlatch has been a big supporter of NOLA, and always a class act. Matt, one of the hard things going to industry conventions now is every time you go there, it's like somebody is retiring, and you're looking around and going like, "Whoa, wait a minute," right?
Well, look at, so Bob, Bob, the one thing I know about Bob is no matter what, whether if you call Bob, I called him a few times when I was working I want to say my Coke days, but it sounds like I'm a drug addict then. For the Coke brothers.
It's better than saying your cock days.
Yeah, exactly. So during Coke or block lumber, whatever you called him, he always calls you back no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a lot of people in this industry that does that. And one thing about Bob, he's always upbeat when you talk to him, right? Like, and I think I talked to Jim a few times way back in the day if he used to work for Riley Creek. Is that?
I think he worked for Stoltz.
Stoltz, yeah.
Okay,
yeah. Stoltz. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's cool, Matt. Hey, Charles, so being a young guy in the industry, man, like, what's your feeling on all this stuff?
He may talk about you like that one day, Ashley.
Well, let's hope.
I just got to pick up the phone and call back. We could start there, Greg, and then maybe I'll have such kind words. I mean, I don't know. I mean, some of these guys have been doing. I mean, Matt's been going to the Inland Conference almost as long as I've been alive. So I don't really have a lot to, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
How is it on the pine side for you, like with relationships and all that kind of stuff at mills?
I mean, it's bulletproof, but that also goes to follow through and, getting some leeway early on when I was teaching myself how to do it because I didn't have a mentor, and some guys kind of, allowing some things to kind of squeak by and kind of move forward. But, we've got some really, really good, properly aligned partnerships that work well for us. That'll probably last, 30, 40 years but they're a lot older than me. So I don't know. We'll see.
Charles, we like to think that that we've been your mentors.
You've helped out.
Did you teach them all about the cattle business?
Yeah, that too. That too.
Well, hey, Charles,
I mean, come on, man.
Charles, you said something a couple weeks ago.
We got you under our wing, Charles. I mean, you're not just a DEI hire here. Come on, that.
I don't know.
There is an overarching lesson in all this for the young guys that listen to our podcast is you do need mentors and you do need people that you can align yourself with. And if you find that, you latch on to it like a tick and don't let go. So you need to foster those relationships because 30 years later, you're going to be giving a speech and it's going to mean something to your career. So definitely, when the door opens, run through it.
No doubt. Hey, Charles, last week you said something 2 weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it, and it was a great point. You're like, South Carolina has lost like 800 billion board feet of production, right?
That's a lot.
800 million.
800 million. Excuse me. And
yeah.
And I'm like, God, that is a hard stat to think about because you wouldn't think that'd even be a reality in the way things are in pine. What's going on with pine? What kind of trends are you seeing out there? Is 2x6 or 414 still rocking? What if we just landed on the planet to trade pine, what would be the few things that you saw over the last week?
There's more 6-inch this week than there was last week. 4-inch 16s are everywhere. 16-foot material in general and 4 and 6 inches, pretty prevalent. 14s are still pretty good, but they're not commanding the premium that they were last week. It seems like there's a lot of people that are, trying to digest and figure out exactly what's going on, but they're not building any inventories. So if you're not building it, you're depleting it. So is there going to be an opportunity to buy? Is there going to be a relief valve? Yeah, probably. What does that look like dollar-wise? I don't know. It could be $30, could be 80. But even then, that window is going to be a lot closer or a lot tighter than it has been historically. I mean, you look at the 2 times pine's given back this year already, and it's reacted pretty quick back to the upside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talking to one of the spruce mills today in the East, I'm like, hey, what are you seeing? And he said to me, 50% of their people on the floor think it's going up. 50% of the people think it's going down. And maybe that's why we've traded in a tight range for 6 weeks on 4-inch. But he did say something interesting while we were talking, that more 6-inch is starting to show up from the mills on the sales list. And makes sense, right? But you go to the Western Spruce guys, and somebody made a comment. Kip told me about this the other day, one of the big mills early in the year, how they were going to buy smaller logs and make more 4-inch. And that certainly seems to be the case because why it's so cheap. And then I go to the U.S. species, Matt. U.S. species, everything seems to be rocking right now, right? And I mean, what's going on there? I mean, like, I heard what Charles said about pine, and it's a tough spot pine's in right now because it could go either way. It's hard to see a trade in front of you there. What about the U.S. species?
Need deeper insights into wood products prices? At Fast Markets, we track over 1,600 price items to help you understand the narrative behind the data and market trends. Our team of experts brings years of institutional history to every price assessment and market report we deliver. From harvesting to housing, we cover every link in the supply chain to provide a complete picture of market dynamics. Use our forecasts and analysis to stress test your strategy and stay ahead of volatility in these critical markets. Stay informed and make better business decisions with Fast Markets. Go to fastmarkets.com/lumbertalk to learn more.
I personally have been really busy all week until today. I'm not as busy today, so I'll say that. I mean, I still sold a few cars and a few trucks, but I mean, I sold a whole bunch of lumber on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So today, by comparison, is slower. And I think it's slower on the floor, I mean, overall, but we've had a pretty good week overall. We've had, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 weeks here of sort of an updraft. And, I think prices aren't really going up anymore. If you just look at, the price of Hem-Fir and Doug fir and green or dry, I think we've kind of reached a point where the prices are pretty high. And now the mills are just going to have to rely on their order file for another couple of weeks. And we'll see what happens, by the time we get to early August. But in the meantime, we're just trading. So yeah, do I know what's going to happen in 2 weeks? I suspect, but I'm not 100% sold on it. I'm just selling inventory, clipping coupons, and selling millwood still. So if somebody counters me $5 or $10, I'm going to pay attention. But if they want to counter me $30 or $40, I'm not interested. Yeah, it's still hard to buy lumber, and it's still hard to find prompt lumber out in the field, and we're still paying $400 a truck more than we ever were in our lives. So the fundamentals haven't really changed all that much. When I start hearing a bunch of mills calling me, offering me lots of prompt lumber, then I'll change my tune. But that's not happening. So I think things are stable right now, but the tone is definitely, you take the speculation out of the market. You're not going to get that little extra 20 cars each week that guys just want to trade. Those guys aren't really buying right now. They've already bought. Yeah. So the real sales are just going to be focused on need. But the problem is the needs come across and it's like, I need 12 trucks of straight 16s. Well, who does that? I mean, not that many people have it. So, we're in the position now where you're trying to match up what people want versus what the mills actually have. And what the mills have are like broken tallies, or they have a bunch of 18s and 20s, or they might have a bunch of 14s. So there's going to be a little bit of conflict here for a bit. We'll see how it all works out. I like the market overall. I think it's healthy.
So I told Ashley this morning, well, let me back up. Let me back up a second though. So I mean, we've kind of had an all-in inventory position for, pretty much the last 6 months, and, had to deal with the weekly emails of like, you have too much wood, too much wood. I'm thinking in the next couple of weeks, they're going to go, hey, when are you going to buy some wood? And, we've reduced our inventory position probably 40% over the last, 3 to 5, probably 4 to 6 over the next 4 to 6 of the last 4 to 6 weeks. Combination of factors have done that. But we're in a situation where we're a week or two max away from, having to decide whether we're going to stay in the distribution business or take August off.
Yeah.
And, I've never stepped away from the market completely. My sense is that if that's our position, there's probably not a lot of people out there that have substantially increased their inventories during this time. I think that the feel I get from end users in our market east of the Mississippi is that business continues to be a little bit better than they think it should be. Doesn't mean it's fantastic. I think that housing starts are still relatively flattish, but the number of people with inventory is lower, and so so the pipeline is really leaned out. Matt, to your point, I don't see any pressure on prices for the next couple of weeks here.
Yeah.
But what I am assigning a higher probability that Western Spruce 2x4s are 700 Chicago by Labor Day than below 600.
Yeah,
and I'll say I'm not positioned for that right now.
Yeah.
But Ashley can buy more lumber in a morning than we can sell in 2 months.
Hold on a second.
So
With
I'm
that
not worried.
said,
I'm not worried.
Every morning, Greg comes in and says, "We're not buying any lumber today." I'm like, "I haven't bought any lumber."
He says.
And then at the end of the day, he walks in like this. I bought like 15 cars. I'm like, 15 cars?
No, have not bought 15 cars any days lately. That's for sure.
One thing we did, there is a little. So Greg and I put a forward price list out on 2x4, 104 and 5/8 last week, and we got the ultimate compliment because one of the group guys sent us basically the same email back with the same ship time and almost price and quantity on it that we sent out on last Thursday that they were selling. And I think, if anything, the board is cheap enough where it's kind of showing you can throw some numbers. But here's a question for Charles and Matt, too. I'm like, hey, why aren't these guys buying this 104 and 5/8 $50 under the spot price for the fourth quarter? And Greg said, Ash, well, because a lot of these guys have it sold $50 below where we're quoting it at.
Well, let's ask Charles. He's in that business. You buy forward price, you sell forward price. What's your answer?
Yeah, what do you think the guys are in Q4 right now? Sold. The guys sold on it, like the job guys. Job people.
I think based on today's numbers, I think they're making money, honestly. I think they're in the green. What they're waiting on is the opportunity to make up for the money they got left on the table in the first 6 months. But there's a fine line, right? I mean, there's a fine line between, discipline and looking at a buying program based on some average sale costs and needs and trucking and some other things that make sense. And then there's, I want an extra $10 and it doesn't happen. Right. So, I mean, there's a fine line. I mean, just like you said, Ash, I mean, sitting on my side of the table, looking at pine, there's not a clear trade that makes sense. You'll run across some things that make sense to buy, but then you run across situations where it just doesn't make sense, right? But you've got a scenario.
Things to buy are like 2x12.
Well, I heard.
Sorry, go ahead.
I heard the same thing on 2x12s and 12 and longer, just based on some of the wet weather that we've had here in the South over the past 60 days. And that really does have an impact. I mean, usually that happens in the first 90 days of the year and it coincides with treater season, but that didn't happen. And we had no wet weather.
I have a question for the group.
Yep.
Remember last winter, we all noticed that 2x8, 2x10, and 2x12 are below 2x4 and 2x6.
Yeah.
And now they're big premiums.
Yeah.
What do you think going into next winter? Do you think we're going to return to that status where we have the 2x4 and 2x6 leading 2x8, 2x10, 2x12 again? Because it seems like the big log is sort of a thing of the past, right? And the production volume specifically of 2x10 and 2x12 out west here just keeps shrinking. And I'm curious what you guys, what your thoughts are. Ashley, you predicted last summer that the price of 2x6 would go to a premium to 2x4, and it did on your little 18-month cycle thing. And let's have a big idea discussion about that. 2x8, 2x10, 2x12.
Well, 2x8, 2x10, and 2x12, you cut the biggest logs in the winter, right? And that's when a lot of the big mills run them, if we're just talking northern mills.
Yeah.
And I think that happened again this year, as we saw Greg and I when we were EFPing with Can4. We were doing it last year on 2x10 that they shipped in. Greg, what months did they ship those in?
January, February.
And so because
you did it in November,
we looked at them and we're like, holy shit, like it's one of the best basis trades ever.
Yeah.
And it worked.
No, and the best part about it was they're EFPing $100 above. So you clipped $100 coupon on futures out of the gate.
Yeah.
And then by the time this stuff shipped and sold, it was selling above that cash price.
That sounds good.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. the problem is you never do enough, Matt. You know, the really great trades, you never do enough. Like
when you called out Sunny Alpine at 280.
I got the wagon full of shitty trades.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah. So
but,
I mean,
I guess to your point, Matt, is as well as I do that eventually they look and they go, okay, these prices, these are our profitable prices for the mill, and the mill is going to run. If the mill runs wides efficiently, they're gonna run them because it's getting a better mill return, right?
For sure, if you can run 2x12 and you've got the right kind of sawmill and right kind of log, and you can really target 16s, 18s, and 20s, that would be quite profitable for you. Yes, that'd be very profitable.
The bigger question is with spruce studs being as strong as they are, and now to a degree, there was that period of time when the Hem-Fir was undercutting it substantially into markets. But I look at the Hem-Fir stud prices now, and their premiums to spruce in some cases. Is the production going to come back on those?
Personal opinion is that Western mills are profitable right now, and doesn't matter if it's Western Dimension or studs. The numbers are working for them. They're making money. And, this back half of the year, you tend to have free flow of logs. You end up with mills wanting to run. And, I've seen this for really my whole career. You get in October, November, December, and the mills will just keep running, even though the market's not demanding that much volume anymore. And that's why we have these giant seasonal charts, right? Like typically, Greg, you're not going to want to buy a bunch of lumber in September if you think you can buy it for less in October or November. We might have a Katrina event, or we might have, I remember one year China came in and just started buying all kinds of lumber in September. So it kind of threw that pattern off. But the overall pattern is set. So
seasonal low in 7 out of 10 years is the third week in October.
Yeah. So I believe that you'll see the mills will run, and they'll sneak in a few extra hours here and there, but they're not going to add shifts. They're not going to really add any big capacity. Nothing's going to change in terms of just base capacity in the West, but a couple extra hours a day, maybe come in on a Saturday. You'll see a little bit extra production sneak into the market here over the back half of the year.
One thing.
So we're not expecting to see that out of Canada, really. I guess maybe
if it's 700, they will.
The stud composite index.
Yeah, no, if it hits 700, yeah.
Let's think of it this way. The stud composite index, Random Length stud composite index, adjusted for the Canadian dollar last week. The Canadian dollar return was $864 Canadian. Yeah. Now that composite takes into it every different species and all that, but let's just say that's one of the best returning. So if I'm a Canadian stud mill,
well, you are a Canadian stud mill. You actually work for a Canadian stud mill.
But I mean, I would.
Hey, we're not supposed to tell them that our 10-foot mill is opening up in August. Ashley,
I would run, but no. But I'm saying it's like right now.
It's been set for a year. They are opening in August.
You want to hear my personal opinion. If I don't own a Canadian stud mill personally, but if I did, I would probably try to go out and sell forward as much 2x4, 2x6, 8, 9, and 10 foot as humanly freaking possible within $50 to $75 at today's price, as far out as somebody would buy it.
The trick is,
I can assure you that there's no one going to do that.
They will
Zero
not.
people.
No, mills are. I actually used to do trades like that, and you can still do. There's some specialty items you can lock in 6-month type deals, but back in the old days, back in the 90s, I used to do a bunch of 2x10 Hem-Fir. I'd do it like in November, December, and it would ship in April. And I had a buddy in Detroit that was the back half of that trade, and we would just negotiate it all with Willamette Industries. Remember Willamette?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They became Weyerhaeuser. But going back to what you just said, Greg, your mill's opening back up. That's kind of what I mean. These prices are enticing to producers now, and so you're going to see a little bit, but not a lot of extra production come in. Big problem in the Western United States. If you start really increasing production, you're going to drive those log prices up. And that's the real driver of profitability out here is if log demand and log pricing goes bonkers, those timber owners they'll start restricting their sales. They're just like us. They're cagey, they'll figure it out. So there's no incentive for the mills out here. You can't hire enough labor anyhow. Nobody wants to work in a sawmill. So
I mean, there's a huge lag in the time that in the West that you contract for logs and those logs are cut and processed. It's a lot different than the South where it's like, it's Gatewood. The guy shows up today, that's the price, and they cut it that week, right, Charles?
Well, I mean, but in the South, you have a mix of both, right? I mean, you have forward contracts, like you have 6-month, 12-month contract, but that's only going to be a percentage of your log procurement strategy, right? And given the fact that, and I'm just talking local log markets, that we've cut so much production out. I mean, a lot of people that even some of the timber buyers that went out and locked up 6 to 12-month cut contracts and didn't sell it to the mill or didn't put the deal together with the mill before all of this happened. I mean, they got to take it somewhere, and the price is a price. You either win, lose, or draw. But to Matt's point,
oh, good. Sorry.
Timberland owners are not only cagey, but down here, you hear whispers of guys talking about you're going to have to pay somebody to come cut your timber, right? And 20 years ago, you used to be able to cut a track of wood and pay for the dirt. And you're only out of pocket as if you wanted to stump it. And then if you replanted it, you get a subsidy for that. Those things don't happen anymore. It's going to be really interesting. I mean, there's very little pulpwood outlets to chip. Kip's brought that up a million times, and he's 100% correct. Down here, that's a problem.
So we saw that Canfor's closed in Northwood Pulp, and is that already factored into the lumber production curtailments, or is that going to lead to more BC lumber curtailment?
It's a bit of a vicious cycle, right?
It's a warning.
Mills curtail, that's less raw fiber for the pulp plant. And then the pulp plant curtails, and then that's less outlet for the residuals for the sawmills. And then blah, 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 it just goes back and forth. It's like, it's just not good. Which brings me to Charles. In South Carolina specifically, have they shut down a bunch of pulp plants down there also? I mean, what do the mills down there do with their residuals, or do you have any issues getting rid of your residuals? So just kind of curious about that.
I mean, mulch is a big thing, as you can imagine, right? Because you can put it out year round down here. But you used to have a lot of commercial outlets. I mean, you had Enviva that had a couple pellet plants. You've got, sawmills that run, residual fired kilns and things of the nature. But a lot of paper mills are gone. I mean, you've got New Indy, who is a pulp mill that's owned by whatchamacallit. I think they transitioned away from hardwood pulpwood to softwood pulpwood, and they're buying a lot more round logs and residuals. And if they're buying residuals, they're not paying anything for it because you don't have to, because there's nowhere else to go with it, right? So, I mean, right where y'all are building that mill, I mean, there was an Enviva pellet plant not too far from there, and that shut down. Well, it might be back up and running, but they're not operating at the capacity that they were before they got delisted.
I mean, I hear that the best market is for pine straw, though, huh, Charles? Pine straw? That's where you make all the real money.
Charles has like 7 feet of mulch around.
You gotta get that. You gotta get that feel. You gotta get that long leaf, right?
Sure.
Huh?
Charles's place is a hazmat. It's going to be declared.
So
it's going to be declared a disaster zone.
We didn't talk about this. We had Russ last week, but we got the information on Canadian shipments to the U.S. And I mean, the big surprise. Well, I guess partially it's a surprise, and maybe it's not. Was that from last June to this June, right? That Canadian shipments were actually up by 4.3% on the month. You mean now year to date, where they started the year being down 20+% first few months, first quarter, year to date now they're down 10.7%. It's going to be really interesting to see over these next, few months. I mean, I guess I suspect that with everything that's happened that over the next 2 months, it's probably going to be hard for them to be up again versus the same time of last year, but we'll see.
Who knows? Yeah.
Right.
Remember what I said about 20 minutes ago about it being slower today? Well, I lied. I'm all of a sudden just getting slammed with a bunch of orders on the email.
That's because people are listening to the show. I mean, that's what it is, Matt.
Only the paid subscribers.
Charles, how's your business over the last quarter, the last few weeks? Like, what are you seeing?
A lot of fill-in trucks, a lot of quick needs, not a lot of people wanting to lock in forward pricing. You're getting some inquiry for forward pricing, but people are, you got to try to dig out of a hole, honestly. And,
I hear rents are down.
Do what?
I said, I hear rents are down.
That's part of it.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, what happened in the first 6 months? The market's inherently short. That's just the way I see it. That's my perspective. I think whether you are selling a single family, multifamily, you're a trust guy, it doesn't matter. I think you're inherently short because this year has surprised a lot of us with a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of issues that we've had to overcome, right? i.e. logistically, you're not getting wood near as fast. You're not, a sawmill that is an extra 40 miles away is costing you an extra $400. So there's a lot of things that are going on that are creating issues. And as you mentioned, Ash, there's not a lot of people that are building inventories right now. So if you're not building it, you're depleting it. And if everybody kind of steps in at the same time, it could create a problem.
Well, that's so the biggest surprise wouldn't probably be the market falling. It would be everybody all of a sudden waking up and realizing there's one extra
it's not
house
going
being
anywhere.
built. And Matt mentioned, Matt mentioned something about rent. I was listening to a podcast last night with a multifamily guy, and he said rents, I'm going to butcher this, but he goes, price of rent fluctuates around a very small margin. So if it drops to 94% occupancy, they're hanging like rentals. They're dropping prices 96%. They're starting to raise rent. And there was a lot of deliveries of multifamily that came on recently that are getting cleaned up. And they're getting to a point where that occupancy rate is moving up. And at some point when it moves up, you can start raising rent. When you start raising rent, you can start building more multifamily, right? Yep. Is that, Charles, did I kind of explain that half-assed okay?
No, that's that's the only way it cash flows.
Yeah. And the point was there was a hell of a lot of multifamily delivered over the last 6 months. And, that's worked through the system, so to speak. Greg, sorry, go. I was like,
yeah. I don't know. The big delivery of multifamily, was in 24, and that's when that's maybe 25, and we saw that when we had a big drop in multifamily starts year over year. Last year multifamily starts were up, and they're up this. They were last year multifamily was up, single family was down a little bit. And that's the same thing that's happening so far this year. Multifamily's up and single family's down a little bit. Yeah. And my other backdrop when I'm thinking about everything is acknowledging that this is the third year of basically a flat demand. And so by definition, we're in a supply push market as opposed to demand pull. Any substantive increase in demand, if it shows up, and 700 will be a light number because to Matt's point, it takes prices have to overshoot. We've been operating below the cost of production for the most part of the last 24 to 30 months, depending on the region that you're in.
Yeah,
and it takes a long time being above break even for there to be any substantive increase in production. To Matt's point, labor's an issue, like log supply is an issue. So, I'm build a better case that we're at 700 by September than below 600. But I could be with Charles and say, hey, what does everybody hate more than anything? A flat market that goes nowhere, right? And maybe that's what we're looking at.
Hey, before we go, because I know, Greg, you need to go.
True.
I did, I had a 6-hour drive from Coeur d'Alene back to Portland. So I listened to the podcast, the day after you guys did it with Russ. And I want to give Russ a big kudos because he was on fire. You guys had a really good show last week. And I was, as a listener, because I don't usually listen to it because I'm doing it, But as a listener, I was impressed. There's actual value in these guests that we bring on. I mean, yeah, you guys can listen to us BS with each other if you want to. I get a lot out of it personally because it helps me to flesh out my own ideas and thoughts about the market. But listen to somebody like Russ or Dustin or Kip or any of these other people we've brought on over the years. Yeah, they always bring a slightly different angle to things that I think is really beneficial to the people that listen to this. So I want to thank Russ a lot. He did a great job.
He's always good to have on. That's for sure.
Matt, and I got to point out to you, man, like gratitude is an attitude, baby. And like you crushed it today on the gratitude.
You're oozing it today. It's just
like
oozing out of you. I mean, wow.
That will get paid back like a million times forward doing that.
All right, boys, I'm rolling off as always. Big love to the Lumber Word crew. Cheers, guys.
See you, boys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of The Lumber Word. The Lumber Word podcast is dedicated to engaging conversations about the lumber industry, including trading ideas, market trends, and evaluations of overvalued and undervalued assets. We wish to emphasize that the discussions and opinions expressed in this podcast are purely for informational and entertainment purposes. They should not be considered as financial or investment advice. We encourage our listeners to make their own financial decisions, taking into account their unique circumstances and financial goals, and to seek professional financial advice if necessary.